Okay. Who here does not worry about money in any way, shape, or form? One person. That's great, because I was hoping maybe we could have a drink after the show. I had a situation once where I suddenly found myself in debt to somebody for something that I didn't agree with and did not understand, and it was kind of existentialist, quite frankly. Here's the deal. After 9/11, which is 24 odd years ago, I had been working at a software company, and the software company promptly went under, and I spent a delightful 8 months unemployed. And at the end of it, I managed to get a job with the Ministry of Transportation as a technical writer, policy writer, that type of thing. It was exactly as exciting as it sounds. And they paid very well for that kind of work, and I was miserable. I'd had 8 months, and my father was sick. He was just getting very, very sick, and I was paranoid, and everything in the world was out to get me. Even the first day at this particular job, I walked into the lunchroom at the Ministry of Transport, which is at Downsview in Toronto, and it's this enormous 1950s kind of fascist building, kind of brutalist architecture, and I walked in completely paranoid, and the first thing I saw was a cooler that it had Coke, Pepsi, etc., and I thought, this is what's wrong with this country. This is what's wrong with the government. They're giving people soda water, they're giving people carbonated beverages, and it's terrible, and it's full of sugar, and it's awful. And then someone pointed out, if you walked further in, you would find a second cooler that was filled with milk and juice, all from reputable Ontario bottlers, all of which were sold at a discount to promote good health amongst staff. I discovered this on Cranberry Tuesday. So I'm a little paranoid, and I'm kind of broke, and my father is sick. My father has just lost a kidney, and there are complications. Now, I'm living kind of midtown Toronto, and I'm going to have to start going from my apartment to Sunnybrook to check out my father. And it's a really inconvenient place to get to. I'm going to have to take the subway and then take a bus and then wait for the bus, and the traffic is awful. One of the people I worked with lived relatively nearby, a guy named Ron. And Ron, as I told him about this, saying that I'm going to have to spend like 2 hours almost every day to visit my father, literally threw me his car keys. He just said, yeah, just bring it back, put some gas in sometimes. Are you serious? Yeah, just take it. I mean, it's not that the bus fare was that much, and it's not that the cab fare was that much, it was the time. So rather than working from 9 to 5 and going home and then trying to get to Sunnybrook for visiting hours to visit my father, he just gave me the means to do it. And that meant a lot to me. And he was having a lousy time. He was in the middle of a nasty divorce, which, is unlike those wonderful, warm, cuddly divorces that you keep hearing about where everybody gets along. I am not going to talk about the details. It sounded like everybody was not being 100%. So he's going through that, and he was working for the ministry because he had a secondary job. He had a business where he repaired cars, and nobody was paying him, so he was kind of miserable. But he made my life easier. He saved me money, he saved me time, and he never asked for anything. And I did this for months, and my father got out of hospital eventually, for a while at least, and I stopped borrowing his car so often. And he never asked for anything. He would occasionally complain about the lawyers he was dealing with and complain about his business, but he was wonderful. He was completely wonderful. And when the crisis was over, and I was beginning to fade into that job and not loathe it and not be so paranoid, I had borrowed his car to pick up something from IKEA. I mean, something big enough I needed a car. And I drove into the underground garage it was building, and it was a mess. And it was so tight, I thought, okay, I'll make this easy for him. So I spent around 10 minutes backing into this space. Concrete, very small space, no turning radius, but I managed to do it. I would turn, I'd get out of the car, I'd walk around, make sure I'm not going to take off a mirror or something. It took me 10 minutes, but I got it into the spot. So the next day, when he drives to work, he could simply drive out. This sounds really easy at this point, doesn't it? I didn't think about this. I Went up to his apartment, gave him his keys, said I filled it up. He said thanks. He closed the door. Everything was wonderful for exactly 48 hours. And then I got an email where he said, car has been damaged. As I was pulling out, I took off the mirror, I scratched the left side of the car, and it nicked the bumper at the back, which has now fallen off. So this is an $1,100 repair. And how are we going to figure this out? I wrote back, that's an interesting use of the term we. And he said, well, you parked it. I said, yeah, and you were driving it. And I parked it in such a way that it was literally a straight line. After 5 or 6 mails, essentially it boiled down to, well, I'm so used to backing it up, and that day I was tired, and I just drove out, and this all happened, and that would not have happened if you had not parked it in that way. So what are we going to do? So I am being charged to repair a car for an accident when I was not in it. And all of these emails were very, very polite, by the way. He had been an accountant at one point. So the last mail he said was, I am going to get an estimate from the garage. I have one for $1,100, and there was one for $1,300. I'm going to go for the $1,100. So why don't we go to the Jester Pub, and we'll sit down and, quote, between you and I, we'll figure out a fair number. I got a fair number. 0. That is my fair number. I am furious at this. But I'm also not furious because this guy has made my life easier. Being able to drive to Sunnybrook Hospital to see my father rather than standing at a bus stop for hours at a time meant a lot to me. So I owe him something. Like I definitely owe him something. But I feel like I'm sort of being retroactively asked to pay for the times I borrowed his car, which I don't think is exactly fair. And I'm also very aware of the fact that he can't yell at his wife's lawyer, and he can no longer yell at his soon-to-be ex-wife, and he can't yell at his clients too much because they may not pay him, but he can yell to me in a really polite kind of, you are one of the things that's making my life hard, and I don't believe I have exactly, but I owe him a favor, and this isn't about the money. I had no idea what to do, and I kept thinking, I'm a scapegoat. I don't want to be a scapegoat for this. I do not want to be the only person here. This isn't about the money. This isn't, oh damn. It isn't about the money. And I honestly believe that, which meant I needed to put the money that didn't matter where my mouth was. So here was my approach. He had booked off time that we would go to the Jester Pub, which was a nice quiet pub at Yonge and St. Clair, and we would talk this out to get that fair number. This is on a Saturday afternoon. I walked in, he's at the back of the pub. Obviously had been an accountant at one point because he's got a ledger in front of him and the receipts and coffee, because you can't drink when you do these things, and a pen and his reading glasses. And Ron is ready, and he must have a speech. He must have an explanation. All of this is going to come together. And I walked to the back, and I've already gotten a pint. And he said, well, I was thinking we could talk first. And I said, no, here. I put the pint down, reached into my pocket. I'd been to my bank the day before, and I brought out 2 certified checks. One was for $1,100. One was for $550. I put them on the table and said, which one do you want? He said, we're going to talk about it. I said, no. I owe it everything, or I'm going to pay half. Anything else, we're just wasting time. If you think I owe something, I either owe it all, or I'm going to owe half because I wasn't driving. It's your call. This isn't worth negotiating. I'm sorry about your car, but this isn't worth a friendship. So whichever one you want, these are certified checks. You can deposit it at a machine in the next 10 minutes. And whichever one you don't want, I'll take back and I'll cancel. But I need the actual check to make the cancellation. So, let's have a beer. You figure out which one you want. And so how are things with your wife? He didn't expect that. He didn't expect a moment of that. And after around a minute, he turned them face down and said, well, you weren't actually driving. I said, yeah, we'll figure it out. Just like, what happened this week? And we did not talk about the accident or how much it would cost to repair. And after an hour and a half, it was like we just happened to meet for a drink, and there was no reason to have done it other than meeting for a drink. So I'm not going to tell you which one he took. I will tell you that around 2 weeks later, essentially I got change. And the change was far more than I expected to get from that transaction. And it was handed to me sort of along the lines of, oh yeah, this is yours, it's all taken care of. So I'm not going to say I was not out of pocket entirely, but by offering everything or half on a very mercantile basis, I managed to save a lot of money. And I managed to save a friendship. And it's kind of ironic because we fell out of touch a couple of years later, and not for a bad reason. It's just that you get older, and he got remarried, and I moved, and I had kids, etc., etc. And I've told the story before, and some people have said, are you an idiot? Why would you take responsibility for something that was clearly not your responsibility? And I agree with them, except for the fact that I would have spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on cabs just to keep my sanity when my dad was sick. And he prevented that, so he gets something out of it. And maybe the 2 checks were a leap of faith. So one more time, it's all about the money, but in that particular time, it was not all about the money. Thanks very much for your time.